Hi, my name is Ron Roberts Jr., and I want to welcome you to Robert's Rules of Order Sports Design Edition. So this talk is my bias, and I must admit very biased, and also fun take on what good sports design should look like. So confession, I love logos. I've been into logos for a number of years, and I've bought books on them. So I'm very artistic by nature, and so it's probably no surprise that I love logos as much as I do. Going further, I love sports team logos. And so on the screen, some examples of some logos I think that are pretty cool. I'll toss in some others that are considered classics just to make sure I was checking a few boxes. And then beyond that, I love sports team uniforms. And so every time the NFL or NHL or NBA or Major League Baseball season starts, I'm always on the lookout as to which teams have updated their uniforms. So I'm totally into this. And just bottom line, I absolutely love sports design. So whether it's team uniforms, logos, or helmets, I love it. So let's talk about the rules. So before we get into the rules, I just want to issue a disclaimer here that taste in design is subjective. So I mentioned in the beginning that I have my biases towards what good sports design is like. And so the examples I'm going to share are simply my preferences. And so there's great sports design. There's just some sports design that I'm more into than others. And so just some examples. And one other thing I'll say too, my examples are very football heavy. So there's great and poor sports design in my estimation across all leagues and across in the collegiate world. But a lot of the examples I'm sharing are football heavy. So rule number one, too much white ain't necessarily right. And so this is not a reference to racial diversity. I'm talking about team uniforms. And this rule is very painful for me to share because the team on the screen, the Penn State Nittany Lions, is my favorite college football team. And so for years, I've had to watch this team, these all-white uniforms. It's absolutely driven me crazy. And so I'm very much in the color. And so I think too much white ain't necessarily right. Rule number two, color is your friend. So a couple of good examples of what I think good uniforms should look like with balanced color. And so nice color on the jerseys, nice color on the pants, but there's a contrast. And so color is your friend. Rule number three, color does not have to be your BFF. And so there's such a thing as too much color. So I love color, but there are examples on the screen here and then elsewhere where there's been way too much color and it's been kind of hard on the eyes. Rule number four, cartoons do not belong in football helmets. Let me repeat that. Cartoons do not belong in football helmets. And so years ago, when the Baltimore Ravens came into existence, they came out with a logo, and it was really cool. It was this menacing picture of this raven, and it was great. But due to some sort of copyright issues or infringement or some dispute, the Ravens had to do away with their original logo. And so they were working on a new logo, and so I figured they're going to come up with another menacing version of the raven. But then they came up with this cartoon bird, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. And so, and you think about all the years when the Ravens have had these very intimidating defenses, you think about Ray Lewis's teams, and just to, to betray themselves with a cartoon bird inside of the helmet just was not a good look. And then you have the University of Louisville that did the same thing too. So cartoons do not belong on football helmets. Rule number five, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So years ago, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided to do an update on their team uniforms and also the helmet. And I thought they did a great job. I love the new colors and the logo is really good. And I was into the creamsicles. I was cool with the creamsicles, but this was a nice update. And so I was good with it. And then a few years ago, they decided to do another update to the uniforms and to their logo. And to me, they went off the rails. Instead of this nice, size logo to the left, they decided to come up with this very inflated size logo on the helmet, taking over almost all the helmet. And I thought that was a mistake too. So I felt they had a good thing on the left and they tampered with it and just went too far and messed it up. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Rule number six, stick to your color scheme. And I'm a big stickler on this. And so I know over the last, number of years, it's been a trendy thing for, teams, sports teams to, insert black have a black uniform as an alternate uni. You know, black is really cool, it's trendy, and so I get that, but I just haven't been a real big fan of that. And this picture on the left of the New York Giants uniforms has absolutely killed me for years. So years ago, they decided to do an update to their logos, to their uniforms and their helmet logo in tribute to one of the championship teams. I think it was from the 40s, it may have been the 60s. But so it was cool overall, but then I noticed they were gray pants. It's like, oh, okay, that's odd. But I figured it was just going to be a one-year deal, so no big deal. But they kept it, and they've kept it for a number of years. And so every time I look at these uniforms, the gray pants and with the blue and red, it just doesn't make sense to me because blue, red, and white is the Giants color scheme. So the gray doesn't fit in. And so finally this year, I believe, this was the first year, they brought out some white pants. And that's such an upgrade, you know, much better look. White's in the part of the color scheme. And so, so if it's not in your color palette, in my estimation, it shouldn't be on your helmet or your uniform. Stick to your color scheme. Rule number 7, and my final rule, don't make decisions when sleep deprived. So on the screen, you have a version of the Cleveland Cavaliers uniforms from back in the early to mid 90s, and among the ugliest uniforms I've ever seen. And I don't fault the designer because every designer has their own taste, but I do fault the organization's creative team and their executives for moving forward with this decision. And I don't know if they had too many sleepless nights or what, but it looked like they made this decision when they were sleep deprived. And so don't make sports design decisions when you're sleep deprived. Finally, on a more serious note, I'm going to give shout outs to a few gentlemen on the screen who were very helpful to me years ago when I was putting together or planning to put together a book on the history and evolution of sports design. And so I was going to feature some history of sports team uniforms and logos, and I was going to have a lot of fun with it. And so unfortunately, it didn't get off the ground, but the book is still in my head. So one of these days, I'm going to get back at it and hopefully do it. But these gentlemen were very helpful to me in terms of my research, because I did a lot of research. And so Ken Lowe, who was the designer of the iconic New England Patriots logo, he was very helpful in the beginning, and it was really cool meeting him, just knowing his history of designing the New England Patriots logo. So it was very helpful. And then you had Eric Rickabaugh and Todd Radom, who were also helpful to me too, as I was doing my research, and they gave me some great insight. And then Tom O'Grady, who's a legend in the field, and he was with the NBA years ago. And so I had the privilege of being able to connect with him, and he's helpful as well. And then finally, you have Chris Creamer. I've never met Chris, but Chris has been an inspiration. For years, he's had a website, sportslogos.net, and where he keeps people up to date with all the changes in sports logos and uniforms and so forth. And so, so I really appreciated Chris's work. And so I want to give a shout out to Chris as well as to Ken, Eric, Todd, and Tom. Well, I hope that you had some fun with that. I had a lot of fun. So hopefully you had some fun listening to me on this. And once again, this is just my take on what good and best sports design looks like. And there's so many examples out there. So I probably will do another talk and just cover some more uniforms, more in the NBA or MLB or NHL as well. But thank you for listening.